There's a principle in Life's Potluck Buffet that's expressed in card 17. And I'm going to talk about that today and talk about how it is the complete rethinking of a rule of management that has no bearing on Life's Potluck Buffet's world. So stick around for today's episode. I'm John Paulus. You're listening to Life's Potluck Buffet only on YouTube. Card 17 of Life's Potluck Buffet, and I think this is fitting because yesterday I was talking about pi, the Greek letter, and originally pi was the number 17 because there was another letter that's no longer in the Greek alphabet that was number 6. Remember that, the digamma, which it turned into basically what is today's F in our Latin alphabet. Well, card 17 of Life's Potluck Buffet is everything that happens to us is only partly our doing. There's a lot of stuff out there about how you somehow create your own destiny. And we know from experience in our lives, just think back and experience our lives, that most of what happens to us is not our doing. We do have the ability to do things. We know that. And we do have a will. And this is not to suggest that at all that this is everything is already written in the stars and we have no hope but to just kind of go through life being bandied about by fate. That's not what we're saying here. But what we're saying is there's a percentage of action that we can take, that we have control of, but it's a lot smaller than we are led to believe. And in Life's Potluck Buffet, this is our own 80-20 rule. Now, you probably have seen videos. If you're listening to this, I take it you've seen videos or heard about the 80-20 rule in terms of management. And this is a rule that it also is applied to things like fundraising and all sorts of areas. And it's the idea that 80% of the total stuff that gets done is done by 20% of the people, and then 20% of the people do 80% of what gets done. Now, that has nothing to do with Life's Potluck Buffet's 80-20 rule, because our 80-20 rule is about everything that happens to us is only partly our doing. And that is that 80% of what happens to us is not our doing, and 20% of what happens to us is our doing. So that gives us that room to operate, that 20%. And the best we can do is to take full advantage of that 20%. In the card here, it says, get in your ship, set a course, weigh anchor, and open your heart to the idea that you have been in the right port at the right time before, and you will be again. Oh, and I just realized that this is also important to pi, because I mentioned in yesterday's episode that pi can also represent the number 80 in ancient Greek. So that is, so card 17, that was the oldest number for pi. 80. Wow, everything is going on really well. I wonder, the other number we had was card 16, and well, let's see what card we draw today to see if we draw card 16. That would be pretty amazing. But 80% of what happens with the cards is out of my control. Well, no, actually, I think it's more than 100% is out of my control. So I try to pretend like my shuffling does something, but it's just the cards just like me to be silly and say funny things, I think. Okay, so here we go. Yellow lemons, blue dumplings, magenta noodles, cards. Tell us something. Must be really cool if it's card 16, I have to say. All right, here we go. Oh, it's a wild card. I think that's pretty fitting for today's topic. It's the wild card that talks about taglines, and the wild card says, Life's Potluck Buffet, it's about what you bring to it. Oh, well, that has everything to do with today's theme. That 20% is what we are bringing to it. And that's what Life's Potluck Buffet is all about. That 80% that we don't have any control over, there's nothing we can do about that. But that 20%, that's what we bring to it. And I kind of like that 80-20 rule more than the 80-20 principle that you see a lot online and in textbooks and things like that about management. Because, the 80-20 principle had everything to do with wealth inequality. Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but and it still has to do with inequality, and that's a problem. But it started out in the work of a guy named Wilfrid Pareto. Uh, Pareto I'm trying to pronounce, he was Genovese in Italian. And so I'm trying to pronounce it in the Genoese dialect. And I think, according to what my research tells me, it's Pareto, like a Pareto. So that's, yeah, okay. I don't know if that sounded right. If you were from Genoa, hello, and let me know if I pronounced that right. So the what Pareto came up with, he was at a university in Switzerland, Lausanne, and what he came up with was that 20% of the 20% of the population of Italy owned 80% of the farms. So this was obviously this was based in a kind of inequality there. That's, in land ownership. So that's where a guy who is working on developing kind of principles of management in the 20th century came up with the idea that 80% of quality issues are due to 20% of causes. And then this got applied to just about everything else. 80% of your profits come from 20% of your investment, 80% of your fundraising comes from 20% of your people, 80% of the work that gets done by 20% of the people. All of this stuff, it kind of got way out of hand. But if we can think about the 80-20 rule of Life's Potluck Buffet, and focus on that 20% that we can do something about, then that 80% of things that happen to us that are out of our control become a lot less problematic. So think about that today and use that 80-20 rule. One, to set a course for yourself and where you want to go and how you want to do, and realize that 80% of things that happen to us that are out of our control are just another one of life's wonderful little mysteries. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on Life's Potluck Buffet. Oh, and for the 80% of you who like this video, don't forget to subscribe and share the video when you get a chance.